Hey guys, welcome back to another video. In today's video, we're going to be talking about fact-checking Ohio's 4th District Representative Jim Jordan. As you can see, his Facebook account is over here, YouTube account is over here, his Twitter account is over here, Jim Jordan's website over here. And my rating level is going to be between true, mostly true, half true, mostly false, and false. I'm going to be using Politifacts rating system, which if you go over here, you can see that. The rating system is true, the statement is accurate, and there's nothing significant missing. Mostly true, the statement is accurate but needs clarification or additional information. Half true, the statement is partially accurate but leaves out important details or takes things out of context. Mostly false, the statement contains an element of truth but ignores critical facts that would give a different impression. False, the statement is not accurate. Again, the rating system is from PolitiFact, so, don't sue me, stuff like that. I'm using it to spread the truth. Anyways, I'm probably going to be a little bit behind on these for a little bit because currently I'm on the 7th tweet. I would scroll down, but I'm not going to spoil it. If you want to see the most recent things, I'll probably be posting it on YouTube first in the post section, but I'll be uploading videos after it. Currently, I'm going to be looking at however many I want to today, but I'm making this kind of format where you get to see me in the bottom corner over there, I think. And then you get to see the document itself that I've been doing it on, and I usually will copy it over from the document onto the posts. Usually is what I do. Document comes first, and I've been working on this I've been probably spending a whole lot of hours working on all of this because it's honestly a lot. There was one tweet actually, I think it was my sixth one I looked at, sixth tweet / post I looked at from him. And it took me 2 days to fact check because he did so much stuff in one thing. But I mean, the more the better, because the more I can do, the better. Because more content, stuff like that. But posts aren't getting much view, and I feel like I wouldn't want to read a post because I'm too lazy. I'd want to listen to a video, probably put it down and just listen to it. But anyways, the first tweet looked at is, Jim Jordan. I took the screenshot when it was 2 hours ago posted. In the past few weeks, we've seen employees of the Israeli embassy murdered and pro-Israel supporters targeted with Molotov cocktails. This, on top of the constant lies about the Israeli government from the media and others. It must stop. Stand with Israel. Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 12:44 p.m. Employees of the Israeli embassy murdered is true. This is accurate. 2 staff members of the Israeli embassy in Washington, D.C., Yaren Lichinsky, looking mad at me for that pronunciation, and Sarah Lynn Milgram, were shot and killed on May 22nd, 2025. The attack occurred as they were leaving an event at the Capitol Jewish Museum. The assailant reported shouted, "Free, free Palestine," after the shooting. Both U.S. and Israeli officials have described the incident as an act of terror and anti-Semitism. The victims were embassy staff, not diplomats, but were employed by the Israeli embassy. This is according to abcnews.go.com and npr.org. Also, on the posts I send, you can go to the specific links. If you don't want to have to type in the exact thing, you can go to the posts I send, and I have cited sources at the bottom with the full link to it and everything. Second claim is that pro-Israel supporters targeted with Molotov cocktails. That is true. This is also accurate. On June 2nd, 2025, a man shouting "Free Palestine" attacked a pro-Israel gathering in Boulder, Colorado, using Molotov cocktails and a makeshift flamethrower. 8 people, aged 52 to 88, were injured, including a Holocaust survivor. The FBI is investigating the incident as a suspected terrorist act, according to BBC.com and PBS.org. 3. Constant lies about the Israeli government from the media and others, mostly false. This claim is subjective and not directly supported by objective evidence. There are ongoing debates about media coverage of Israel, with some sources alleging media bias against Israel, according to this source right here, while others accuse the Israeli government of spreading misinformation and restricting media access to Gaza. According to this source, and this source, the characterization of constant lies depends on one's perspective and the sources they trust. There is no universally accepted evidence that the media as a whole is engaged in constant lies about Israel. That was the first tweet looked at, and, overall rating is he gets 2 trues and 1 mostly false, which is he puts 2 true statements and then 1 mostly false. I was going to add more there, but there's nothing yet. You'll get to that later. Second tweet looked at. Jim Jordan, 16 minutes ago when I screenshotted it. Remember when Democrats tried to blame President Trump for the price of eggs? Well, the price has dropped 61% since he took office. Thank you, President Trump. Monday, June 2nd, 2025 at 4:17 p.m. Same date as the other one, except it was at a little bit later, 4 hours later in the day-ish. And the claim I put in here was, remember when Democrats tried to blame President Trump for the price of eggs? Well, the price has dropped 61% since he took office. I rated it half true. The claim that egg prices have dropped 61% since President Trump took office is misleading because it refers to wholesale prices, not the prices consumers pay at grocery stores. ams.usda.gov, farmpolicynews.illinois.edu. Well, wholesale egg prices fell significantly from their peak due to the easing of a severe avian flu outbreak that had reduced supply. Retail prices have remained relatively high with only modest declines. The spike in egg prices earlier in 2025 was largely because of bird flu crisis, not presidential policies, according to USAtoday.com. The recent price drop at the wholesale level reflects market recovery and increased supply rather than direct actions by President Trump, according to Forbes. Retail prices typically lag behind wholesale changes, so consumers have not yet seen a dramatic decrease. Both Democrats and Republicans have debated responsibility for the price fluctuations, but experts agree that the changes are mainly driven by supply and demand factors. Therefore, attributing the 61% wholesale price drop solely to President Trump is inaccurate and oversimplifies a complex situation. This I don't want to explain because it's kind of true, right? The price of eggs since he took office is 61% down. Like, you'd think, oh my god, this is insane, President Trump is great. But first of all, President Trump can't really change that. He can't sign a bill that says make egg prices go down. So it's not necessarily how it works. So that's another thing, going it from true to now mostly true. Then we have the next thing where he's talking about wholesale egg prices, which, unless you guys are buying so many eggs, like, I don't know, like hundreds of eggs at once, I'm pretty sure is what wholesale eggs are, then you're not getting wholesale egg prices. What people are actually talking about is retail egg prices. The thing when you go to the store, you bike there, you take a car there, you go to the store, you fly there if you're Taylor Swift in your private jet. But if you go to the store, you will find that the egg prices are probably the exact same. Not 61% drop, because it's talking about retail, so that goes from now mostly true to half true. And then he says, thank you, President Trump, which I already covered, but that makes the end rating half true, because if you go up here, true, the statement is accurate and there's nothing significant missing. Untrue. Mostly true, the statement is accurate but needs clarification or additional information. Yes, that is what happened. Half true, the statement is partially accurate, but leaves out important details or takes things out of context, such as it being out of context, being that it is eggs, but he's talking about wholesale eggs. Everyone else thinks he's talking about retail eggs, so he's taking things out of context, and he leaves out an important detail, that the president can't control the price of eggs. I don't know why they made that a big thing. Anyways, that's the reason for that rating right there. I just feel like I wanted to go over that just so you guys kind of get a look at what I'm seeing. Third tweet looked at. Gas prices hit 4-year low ahead of Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, President Trump. And then that was made at 9:22 p.m. May 23, 2025. I kind of went back because I couldn't find anything recent that he was posting. I don't usually like to look at his interviews because I want to look at real statements he's made on the Twitter, because it's a lot easier to debunk those than going over a video, watching it, and then being like, see, yeah, that right there, that's wrong. It's just a lot more annoying to do because I have to fact check every single quote. He could make hundreds of quotes. It would take me years to fact check. Okay. The thing I fact checked was that, this is a quote in a quote, gas prices hit 4-year low ahead of Memorial Day weekend. Thank you, President Trump, which is mostly true. Yes, it is true that gas prices hit a 4-year low ahead of Memorial Day weekend 2025, with the national average around $3.16 to $3.19 per gallon, which is the lowest for this holiday since 2021. From gasprices.aaa.com and then EIA.gov. This drop is primarily due to falling global crude oil prices, increased oil production, supply outpacing demand, CBS News. While some credit President Trump's energy policies, such as declaring a national energy emergency and boosting domestic production, for the lower prices, experts note that gas prices are mostly driven by global market forces and OPEC Plus decisions. Factors like international supply, demand fluctuations, and geopolitical events all play significant roles. Although the administration's actions may have contributed, it is an oversimplification to attribute the low prices solely to presidential policy. Which is why, instead of giving a true, where, you would need it to be accurate and nothing significant missing, it only got mostly true because the statement is accurate but needs clarification or additional information, such as, President Trump had nothing to really do with it. Which is why you got a mostly true. Fourth tweet looked at is by Rep. Jim Jordan. Obviously, this is on Twitter, just as this one was. Why do Democrats keep lying about President Biden's fitness for office? 6:57 p.m., June 2nd, 2025. Why do Democrats keep lying about President Biden's fitness for office is mostly true. Throughout Joe Biden's presidency, concerns about his age and cognitive fitness were persistent among voters, the media, and even some within his own party. Wikipedia and AP News. The White House and Biden's allies often dismiss these worries, labeling critical reports and viral videos as partisan attacks or manipulated content. Fox News. However, after Biden's poor performance in the June 2024 debate against Donald Trump, scrutiny intensified, with many Democratic lawmakers and commentators openly urging him to withdraw from the race. U.S. News. Media coverage shifted rapidly, highlighting efforts to manage or conceal Biden's health issues during his term. Despite weeks of insisting he would remain a candidate, Biden ultimately suspended his campaign in July 2024 and endorsed Vice President Kamala Harris. This sequence reflected a significant change from initial unified defenses to public acknowledgement of the concerns. The incident highlighted widespread concerns about the president's health and openness, both among Democrats and the general public. Vox. The reason this is mostly true and not true or false is because the statement is not accurate and there's something significant missing. The statement is accurate, like people did try to cover it up, but it needs clarification, such as, Democrats didn't do this forever. They only did it initially, and it was mainly the media, not the people themselves. But, he ended up suspending his campaign, and the only thing I'm confused about this tweet is why he posted this so late. Like, you would think he would post this while he was still running. Why do Democrats keep lying about President Biden's fitness for office? You would think he would post this when he was, still, running, in the race, but I don't get it. I think he's trying to say, people are still trying to cover it up even after so many months. I think that makes sense, but the problem is they're not. Nobody's trying to cover it up. I actually was watching a Dean Live the other day. Some woman brought up the fact that, that, President Biden wasn't fit for office, and then Dean was, silent because she was that wasn't the thing that she was talking about, but he didn't, interrupt her and, decline. Usually he'd be like, whoa, hold on, that's not true. But it seemed like he also agreed, so that's just another example of somebody who's considered to be a reliable person in the Democratic side, not even arguing with that claim, because I think it's also true. I thought, personally, he wasn't super insane. Some people would argue, he fell off his bike. Yeah, if you get your foot caught in a clip, you're probably going to fall over. I've fallen over my bike a couple times now, and it was actually kind of embarrassing. But it doesn't mean I'm unfit for office, right? But I definitely do agree with, some of the things that's happened, especially with cancer and all that, if you keep up with the news. But it's terrible. I hope he actually does get better. But I do think actually at the end it was a good idea for him to suspend his campaign. And I'm glad Vice President got in because it makes sense. 80% of the party wanted her, and, she was also the Vice President at the time. It kind of makes sense. Fifth tweet looked at. Jim Jordan, 8 hours when I took the screenshot. Men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. Why do Democrats let it happen? Tuesday, June 3rd, 2025 at 9 a.m. By the way, if you ever want to know how I got this date here, it's just 8 hours ago. Did you just subtract the time from what time it was? No. What you do have to do is, if you go on Facebook, this little gray thing that says 8 hours ago, you can actually hover over it, and then it'll tell you the exact date, and I copy and paste that and then format it to my style. Okay, men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. Why do Democrats let it happen? Is mostly false. This tweet is misleading and oversimplifies a complex issue. This debate is not about cisgender, a person whose gender identity corresponds with the sex registered for them at birth, men competing in women's sports, but rather about transgender women, individuals assigned male at birth who identify as women, participating in women's categories. The actual number of transgender athletes competing in women's sports is extremely small. For instance, in 2023, only five transgender student athletes were identified as participating on girls' teams in K-12 schools sports nationwide, according to the Pink News and Newsweek. The Democratic Party does not have a unified policy that explicitly allows cisgender men to compete in women's sports. I side with .com. Instead, most Democratic lawmakers support leaving these decisions to the state and local authorities or individual sports organizations. Democrats who support transgender inclusion typically do so based on principles of equality and non-discrimination, while also acknowledging concerns about fairness and competition. The issue has become highly politicized and public opinion has shifted towards supporting restrictions that require athletes to compete according to their sex assigned at birth. However, the claim that Democrats broadly let men compete in women's sports is inaccurate, as the policy debate centers on transgender women, not cisgender men. In summary, the tweet misrepresents both the range of transgender athlete participation and the Democratic Party's stance, which is more nuanced and focused on balancing inclusion with fair competition, which obviously gives him a mostly false, because... Mostly false. The statement contains an element of truth but ignores critical facts that would give it a different impression. The thing that would give it a different impression is the fact that, first of all, it's not men competing in women's sports, it's transgender people competing in women's sports, and Democrats did not let it happen. Which is a very big deal, actually, because I think it's kind of funny, is that later it ends up talking about this, I think, somewhere, but there's only, like, unless I just saw it and then I decided to get rid of it, or I just saw it and read it in the article, but it's something about only, like a very, like, the support for transgender people has gone down so much in the Democratic Party, and overall as well. But I don't understand, like, I was actually kind of on his side. I was like, wait a minute, I'm reading this tweet, like, I don't agree with the whole why do Democrats let it happen, but I do think maybe men shouldn't be competing in women's sports. But then I saw that the actual number is 5 people, and I was like, oh my god, who cares? Like, oh my god, 5 people nationwide from grade K through 12. 5 people? Like, it's like, who cares? Like, let people be happy and do what they want. You know what I mean? I had a whole debate with this topic in school, and then I ended up thinking as well, like, genuinely, who cares? They're not affecting me. As long as they talk to, like, people who, like, experts, like doctors and, like, psychologists, stuff like that, who know what they're talking about, and think, like, yeah, it's generally not an issue, let them do what they need to do, because it's much better than them ending up being dead the next day, right? Then I think we should be listening to the experts here and not trying to get rid of the experts' opinions, because they are the experts. They went to school for like 8 years for this, and we didn't. So I think we should possibly, listen to them and the millions of research articles, whatever. But I did actually agree with him, which is why I think you have to keep an open mind to these kinds of things, because I used to also be a massive supporter of RFK Jr., and then in school, I was in my honors government class. That was the day. I used to be like a massive advocate for him. I used to always be like, oh my god, RFK is the best man to ever exist. This dude is the best person ever. Vaccines are terrible. And then when I was getting my vaccine, actually, I almost declined it and was like, Mom, I don't want to let this happen. But then, luckily, right before that, RFK made a statement being like, I don't say you shouldn't get vaccines. And then I was like, I guess I'll be fine. So I just want you to know that there was a chance I almost didn't get that if he didn't say that, even though he said many times that he doesn't support vaccines, but he just decided to change up his opinion then. Thank God, at least, because I was about to argue with my mother, saying that I don't want to get my vaccine, this is not good for me, I'm going to die and get things. So this actually does affect people, right? And I used to be a big supporter of him, it was middle of honor government class, and he puts on a video debunking all of RFK's claims, and I was so mad. I didn't say anything. Apart from, I raised my hand and was like, why would he lie about it though? Like, what does he gain? And then he was like, well, he gets to be in the cabinet and do stuff he wants to do. And honestly, I wasn't really listening to him, because I was just so mad that they were debunking my favorite idol. But then I kept an open mind about it, right? I listened to everything. I kept an open mind about it, and then about maybe 5 days later, I completely changed my opinion on RFK. I did more research on it and didn't just keep listening to him, because I would literally listen to his podcast with Joe Rogan and be like, he went to a person's door, he knocked on it, and then they opened the door, he asked him a question, and they didn't answer. That's like a real thing that happened, and I just realized I was taking everything at face value. I was taking everything he said as truth when there was no evidence that happened. There was literally zero evidence that happened. And even if it did happen, dude probably ignored you because he's like, yeah, you're insane, dude. Vaccines are completely safe for you. Get out of my house. Millions of people have already done this. And then I started realizing, like, oh my god, I'm stupid. Because I had been trying to convince my mom at that point for maybe, like, 2 months. Every time we would, like, go on walks or, like, anything, I would try to convince her, being like, hey, Mom, just so you know, vaccines are terrible for you, and they're going to kill you, and they're terrible. And I kept trying to convince her. I maybe had, like, a total of, like, 10 hours of convincing, right? And I I've told everyone in my school at that point that, like, this man was the greatest person to ever live, and I completely changed all of their minds, and, like, completely told all of them, and they all believed that vaccines were terrible. Red 40 is terrible. We're all going to die if we eat one more thing of seed oils, because the omega-3 omega-6 balance is going to kill us all, when in reality it's just the fact that you're eating fast food. And that if you don't eat beef tallow and put it on all over your body, you're going to die of mosquito disease. Like, I'm actually not even kidding. I did all of this. I spent hours defending this man and telling how he's a great person, and even supported him for an independent party president. So if somebody ever says that, like, it doesn't really matter that he did all this, it does really matter. This dude manipulated me so bad. I was, like, practically, like eating, like, his second, like, it's like he was throwing up and I was just eating it all up, like, oh yeah, like, just like a bird would, bro. Like, oh my god, it was so bad. So the next time somebody tells you, like, it doesn't actually impact your life, somebody lying like this, like, no, this is a big deal. Like, I'm so happy people are making this a big deal, because I fell for all of it, and I convinced, like maybe like 30 to 40 people that he was bad, and I was starting to convince my mom, who was, like, the most vaccine person ever, that it was actually bad for you. And I was just so disappointed in myself. I was so mad. But the thing is that I kept an open mind and I changed. Like, that's the thing. Like, a lot of people cannot have an open mind. Like, they will hear something, and I get it. If it takes you, like, a week to change, I get it. But what some people will do, it will not take them a week to change. They will never change, because they cannot be wrong. They cannot ever be wrong. Their idol can never be wrong, which I think is a big problem with what Trump does. He convinces these people out of fear, and then they fall for it, and then they don't ever want to be proven wrong, because they're like, who's going to listen to me? That's what I was like. I was like, oh my god, who's ever going to listen to me again after I lied all this time? Like, I would even tell my friend, like, dude, please listen to me now. Like I know I said that beforehand, and I completely just lied to you, and I was an idiot, but this time I swear I'm actually doing the research. Like, I swear I'm actually doing it. Right? But I just feel like I wanted to make that, like, known, because I used to be a big Republican and think that, you know, these people, like, that were supporting vaccines were terrible humans, and then I figured out most of his claims, like, something, like, some sort of mercury or whatever being in the vaccine. Yeah, the thing that he said it was so bad about it is that, guess what, it wasn't even used in vaccines. It was used in, like, vaccines, like, in, like, the 2000s, but not in the 2020s anymore. Like, it wasn't even used, and the fact that vaccines go through more rigorous testing than simple medications does, because it's also given to healthy people, not just sick people, like, that's the thing, is, like, I kept an open mind, luckily, and I was able to change all of my opinions, and that's what humans need to do. We need to keep an open mind, because if somebody's wrong, we need to realize that that person is wrong. If you can never accept that you are wrong, or that the person you idolize is wrong, nobody's ever going to want to talk to you. Because there will be a day when people all realize that getting rid of vaccines is a terrible idea, when people start dying of it really bad. Like, a lot of people start dying to it, because remember what happened to the Native Americans when Columbus and his crew decided to come over? Boom. Everyone died because they didn't have vaccines. If they had vaccines right then, they could just be like, oop, here's the vaccine for all the diseases we're bringing over to you guys, and then almost nobody would have died. Like, we live in such a great time where we live in such peace that we have to find fake things like vaccines and say that they're terrible for us just to keep living, to have fun. You know what I mean? And I generally don't know if RFK Jr. actually believes that, or if he's just using it to his advantage to manipulate people and have them buy his books talking about the vaccines as well, where people have actually also argued, like, people in the books, like, reference their child's or something like that, and they ask, like, hey, can you please take this out? Like, my child does not have autism or whatever, and then he wouldn't take it out because he was like, you know, I would, or he did take it out. I'll be honest, I don't really remember, but all I remember is him talking about it. But I just feel like I needed to make that really known, because these guys really do have a big influence on the younger generation. I fell for everything. I fell for all of it. I took it all at face value. I never did any research. I said I did research, and what I meant by research is I listened to him. And that's all I did. I muted out everyone else, but I kept an open mind, and I realized that I was wrong. That's what everyone has to be able to do. So I went on that little rant. I just wanted people to know that, like, you know, those people actually do have a big influence on the younger people. Like, they actually do. I felt for all of it, but it's okay as long as you have an open mind and change your stance once you realize that you're wrong. Anyways, sixth tweet looked at. Jim Jordan, 19 hours ago. Egg prices down, gas prices down, border crossing down, confidence economy is up, promises made and promises kept by President Trump. Woo! Yeah, woo, look at that. Tuesday, June 3, 2025 at 4:41 p.m. This is the tweet that took me 2 days to fact check because, bro, 1, 2, 3, 4, technically 5 claims made in one thing. That's too much. Like, sure, egg prices down is similar to egg prices being down up here, but it's not the exact same thing. And I wasn't going to use yesterday's research that I did for today's research because I feel like, you should be doing today's research instead of yesterday's research because, the more the better, and also it's kind of a different claim, saying that egg prices down, promises made and promises kept by President Trump. For this, I want you guys to know that I kind of treated it as if he said egg prices down, comma, promises made and promises kept by President Trump. So that's why some of it is going to be a lower rating than you would think, because, egg prices down, half true. Wholesale egg prices in the U.S. have experienced a dramatic drop in recent months, falling from over $8 per dozen in early March 2025 to $252 per dozen by the end of May. This decline follows a period of record high prices driven by a severe outbreak of highly pathogenic avian influenza, which led to the culling, the action of sending an inferior or surplus farm animal to be slaughtered, of millions of egg-laying hens and a sharp contraction in supply. While wholesale prices have dropped more than 80% from their peak, the retail prices consumers pay at the grocery store have not fallen as quickly. In March 2025, retail egg prices hit a record $6.23 per dozen and only began to decline in April, reaching $5.12 per dozen. As of late May, average in-store prices have dropped to $3.64 per dozen, with some retailers offering eggs for less than $3. Despite these recent decreases, retail egg prices remain higher than historic norms, and the FDA predicts prices may still rise over 40% in 2025 due to ongoing supply issues. Now, this would actually normally be considered, mostly true. And actually, I think it would, I think it'd be considered mostly true originally because wholesale egg prices were down and there was slightly prices down in retail egg prices, but then it was listing, the fact that, it's also due to, influenza, which would make it mostly true, not true. But then I had to consider and be like, I feel like this is not true, though. I feel like, and I was like, oh, wait, but he's saying a promise made and promises kept by President Trump. And it's that's actually half true. That doesn't count the exact same. No, now you're putting even more confidence in because President Trump can't control the egg prices. So why would you include that? So, Anyways, second one is that gas prices are down, which is mostly false. During Donald Trump's first term as president, the average U.S. gasoline price was indeed lower than $3 per gallon, averaging about $2.57, which is among the lowest of recent presidents. However, these low prices were largely due to global factors such as dramatic drop in demand during the COVID-19 pandemic rather than to direct presidential action. While Trump has recently claimed that gas prices have dropped to as low as $1.98 per gallon in many states, this is misleading as the national average in spring 2025 was about $3.15 per gallon and the lowest state averages were around $2.65. The $1.98 figure refers to wholesale gasoline futures. Not the retail prices consumers pay at the pump. Additionally, experts widely agree that U.S. presidents have limited control over gas prices, which are primarily determined by global oil markets and supply-demand dynamics. While Trump made campaign promises to lower energy costs, claims of dramatic price cuts or promises kept should be viewed with skepticism, as no president can single-handedly dictate gasoline prices. Thus, while gas prices were relatively low during parts of Trump's presidency, attributing this solely to his policies is misleading and oversimplifies a complex issue. He cannot sign an executive bill that says, hey, gas prices go down, because if he were to actually incite that, the demand for gas would go up like crazy. Well, how should I explain this? If the supply stays the same, but the price goes down, the demand will increase. That will cause something that causes businesses to fail. That's not how it works. You can't just do that. All businesses would fail because they're we have the same amount of supply, but now we have so much more demand, and since we can't increase the prices, we have to increase the supply. But we can't increase the supply that much unless we, but we can't increase the supply that much, right? Because they're already supplying it as much as they can supply it, like it's the normal amount of supply, right? Businesses will just start failing. Like that's just not how it works. Like things being down is not how it works. Imagine like inflation was super high, and then you're like, make inflation zero. Make it zero. Your economy will fail. You need inflation. You need a healthy amount of inflation, which is around 2% to 1.5%. I learned that in government class. I hope you did too. But that's just not how it works. I can't believe he also did run on the fact that you want inflation to be zero. If inflation was zero, the dollar bill would be like practically useless eventually. If there was no inflation, it would be a really big problem. I'll be honest, I don't exactly remember why, but I remember doing all this stuff on it and being like, holy crud, this dude doesn't actually think making inflation to zero will be a good thing, right? If inflation stays zero, that means prices of anything can't change. So that means the more people we get, right? And we're just like, no, keep inflation zero, right? It means the economy will go stagnant. Economy goes stagnant, boom, big recession. And I think that's why. To be honest, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about because I haven't done the research on that in a long time. All I remember is that it's a really bad idea. It's a really bad idea to have 0% inflation. I can go over that later. Border crossings down, mostly true. While a sharp decline in border crossings under President Trump's 2025 policies is seen by many as a success in filling campaign promises and enhancing border security, it has come at a significant cost to due process and basic legal protections for migrants. The administration has expanded expedited removals, allowing for rapid deportations without hearings, and invoked rarely used wartime laws to bypass immigration courts, which result in people being deported without adequate notice or the opportunity to challenge their removal, even in cases where they face serious harm if returned to their home countries. Funding for legal aid to unaccompanied minors has been cut, immigration judges have been dismissed, and court dockets have been overloaded, further eroding meaningful access to justice. These measures have led to mistakes, such as the mistaken deportations of individuals protected by court orders, and have raised concerns about violations of constitutional rights and the risk of wrongful deportations with life or death consequences. While border security has tightened, these policies have triggered legal challenges and widespread criticism from advocates who argue that the U.S. is abandoning its commitment to fairness, family unity, and human dignity in immigration proceedings, hrw.org. I was mad to rate this mostly true, because it's true, border crossings are down. But the issue is that, okay, yeah, they're down, but also due process is being ignored. I'm pretty sure you guys had to have heard about that. I mean, there was a case where the dude literally said, yeah, no, I'm completely innocent, and the judge even ordered, yeah, he's completely innocent. And then Trump said, still keep him in El Salvador. Yeah, that's insane. Imagine we sent Trump to El Salvador, right? And imagine all the felonies he was convicted of, or whatever, right? Which he has been convicted and put guilty of. If you don't believe me, look at any singular court document that says that he was proven guilty at least once, right? And the judge would just say, actually, all these are false, right? All these are false. They're forged, right? But he was still already deported to El Salvador, President Trump. All the Republicans fighting for him, saying we need him back, or just in general, people that were told to like President Trump would just start fighting for it. We need this man back, right? And then he's like, I'm completely innocent. They were forged. Even the judge said it was forged. And then President Biden, he was like, you know what? No, he's not coming back, even though it was forged. Even though that's not even what happened with the other dude. He was just completely innocent. They just ignored his due process. They were forged. He deserves to come back, says the judge. Joe Biden says, nah, he doesn't deserve to come back. We're not doing all that. That's literally insane. Like, you have to realize that's an insane thing. And that's why it's only considered mostly true, because they're missing the fact that, yeah, you're also not allowing due process, and, court dockets are being overloaded, immigration judges have been dismissed, and funding for legal aid has gone down, been cut. So that's why it's mostly true. I wanted to give it completely false, but, I have to be true to my rating system, and I was so mad when I had to get that a mostly true, but it's fine. Confidence in the economy is up, half true. Recent data shows that the U.S. consumer confidence rebounded sharply in May 2025 after many months of decline, with the Consumer Confidence Index rising significantly. This uptick shows growing optimism about future business conditions, employment, and income, though overall opinion remains cautious due to ongoing recession concerns. The expectations index, while improved, is still below the level that would signal economic stability, as it remains under the threshold of 80. This signals historically that there may be a recession within the next year. President Trump has acted on some campaign promises, such as implementing tariffs and rolling back regulations, but many pledges remain only partially fulfilled or face legal and practical hurdles. The improvement in consumer confidence is partly attributed to recent policy announcements, including a pause on some tariffs, particularly following the May 12 announcement of a temporary reduction in tariffs on Chinese imports. However, despite the rebound, economic optimism is still speculative, with consumers expressing ongoing concerns about tariffs raising prices in the broader economic outlook. Therefore, the claim that confidence in the economy is up is accurate for now, but must be understood within the broader context of continued uncertainty and incomplete policy implementation. Thing is that the confidence in the economy was up. If he posted that claim right when tariffs were made, I think the confidence in the economy was like an all-time low. I think it was really bad. I don't know. All I know is that it went from, decent, and then he implemented tariffs, and then everyone was like, oh my god, this dude's gonna make us all poor. I still remember checking in my stocks, and then I was looking at it, and it was like, I think it was maybe like, I looked at it maybe like a month ago, something like that, and it said that I was, what was it? It said that I was 30% down total, and I was like, oh my god. I was like, holy crap, dude. 30% down is insane. That is outrageous, right? Anyways, that is why it's considered half true, is because it was up, like it is up right now, right? But he's literally making it go down, so that's a big context already missed. In that he's making it actually kind of go down, and he's just ignoring the fact that it completely went down when he implemented tariffs, and he hasn't even, completed all his policy he wants to do, which is going to make it go down even more, so it's just half true. Dude. Promises made and promises kept by President Trump, mostly false. As per the magical rating scale above, the 4 promises in question were rated half true, mostly false, mostly true, and half true. Notice a pattern, because I sure don't. For the statement to be true, every single promise would need to be rated true. Sadly, every statement is not. Now, if we're getting mathematical, let's use a simple 5-point system. True is 5 points, false is 0. So we tally up 3, half true, plus 2, mostly false, plus 4, mostly true, plus 3, half true. That equals 12, because 3 plus 2 equals 5, 5 plus 4 equals 9, and 9 plus 3 equals 12. Divide that by 5 for, 5 trues. And we get 2.4. Ooh. Since half true is... Whoopsie. Since half true is 3 points and mostly false is 2, our grand total rounds down to 2, so mostly false. Congratulations, that's the rating. Why politicians play this game is beyond me, but hey, at least it keeps us entertained with some basic math. Is that true, though? Because half true... Wait, so... 3 half true, plus 2 mostly false, plus 4 mostly true, plus 3 half true. That's 1, 2, 3, 4. Damn it, I was supposed to divide it by 4. So technically, I'm supposed to divide that by 4, so maybe divide that by 4, and we get 4, 8, 12, so technically we get 3. Since, I already posted this as well. I hope people don't notice this. Since half true is 3 points, our grand total rounds half true is 3 points, our grand total rounds to half true. It's reading. Hey. Shh. Hey. Technically, I could have rated this and being like, okay, let's look at all the promises that he kept and all the ones that he made, but I wanted to be funny and do it like all of this, right? But I just realized that let's not talk about that, okay? Hey, this is what I'm saying. Like, everyone makes mistakes. This is exactly what I said earlier. People make mistakes, but you need to keep an open mind that, you need to accept your mistakes. So I will admit I made a mistake there. I'm going to have to go back in the post and actually change that as well, because that's going to be really embarrassing if they see, why the heck did you divide it by 5? Let's just forget about that, because I thought it was like, man, half true, mostly false, mostly true, and half true. I feel like that doesn't round to mostly false, but I was like, well, that's the math, I guess. It's because it's 2.4. That's why it's kind of off. Oh, that's kind of funny. That's kind of embarrassing, though. Simple math and I mess it up. Oh, that's embarrassing. Ooh. That's what I'm saying. As long as you can admit you're wrong, it's fine. I admit I was definitely wrong there, but I'll fix that. I will fix it. How long have I been recording? Jeez. Louise, 40 minutes. Yeah, that's a long time. Yeah, nobody's staying for 40 minutes, I doubt. Okay, 7th tweet looked at. Jim Jordan, 17 hours ago, the largest ever ICE operation led to the arrest of 1,500 illegal aliens in Massachusetts. One question, why did Democrats let them in our country in the first place? Wednesday, June 4th, 2025 at 4:29 p.m. The largest ever ICE operation led to the arrest of 1,500 illegal aliens in Massachusetts. One question, why did Democrats let them in our country in the first place? Mostly false. In May 2025, U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, ICE, led Operation Patriot. A month-long enforcement action in Massachusetts that resulted in the arrest of 1,461 individuals identified as being in the country without legal status, making it the largest ICE operation in the state's history. Alright, y'all can, read this sentence. My throat kind of hurts. Do y'all read it? No? The operation focused on people with criminal records and resolved charges or connections to transnational criminal organizations like MS-13 and Tren de Aragua, with 790 of those arrested, about 54%, having significant criminal convictions or pending charges, including violent offenses such as murder, rape, drug trafficking, and child exploitation. ICE officials stated that the goal was to enhance public safety by removing individuals considered threats, and they criticized local sanctuary policies for not cooperating with federal detainers which they argued allowed some offenders to remain in the community. CommonwealthBeacon.org. The remaining 691 detainees did not have significant criminal records, and state officials have called for greater transparency about the operation and those arrested. WGBH.org. While the operation was factual, the claim that Democrats let them in our country in the first place is not supported by evidence. Immigration enforcement and border security are responsibilities shared by both Democratic and Republican administrations, and there is no substantiated evidence that Democratic policies intentionally allowed these individuals to enter the country. The Democratic Party generally supports expanding legal immigration and protecting some long-term residents, but not encouraging illegal immigration. The assertion oversimplifies a complex issue involving federal and local authorities, legal constraints, and a range of policy debates, rather than an intentional action by one political party, getting it mostly false. Because they did not let them in. I remember that was a big thing, a big argument. A bunch of people that supported Trump used against Kamala Harris, saying that Kamala Harris, his administration let them in, they're letting them rape our children and murder and drug traffic and exploit our children. Just didn't happen. There's no evidence that they let them in. If anything, the major thing that I support, which a bunch of other Democrats do support as well, is instead of trying to deport people, which costs billions of dollars, by the way, what you can do actually, is just shorten the time it takes. Instead of taking 20 years to get in, or winning a lottery, immigration lottery, make it take 5, make it take 4. These people are running away from very horrible people that will actually rape their children and murder them and their children, and of course they're going to run to the one sanctuary, aka America. So just simply make it not legal to come in, but make it so there's a shorter wait time so that maybe they have a chance to get in. And I bet you will see illegal immigrants if there's I bet you if you made an experiment where there's a country that has 5 years, right, to get in that country, compared to 20 years to get in that country, right, compared to 20 years to get in that same country. Both of them are right next to areas that have, maybe not the best stuff happening constantly. South America may not have the best stuff happening constantly, not that it's terrible, the worst thing ever, but, may not have the best stuff happening constantly, just like everywhere in the world, nothing's perfect, right? You get one country with 5 years, one country with 20 years. Now, let's say those are the exact same country, but one was during a time where it was 20 years to get in, and one was during a time where it was 5 years to get in, right? If you look at the 5-year country, you will see that the illegal immigration will go so far down because people just simply cannot wait 20 years to get in. If they are about to be murdered or raped or something, they want to get in now. They will do whatever it takes. They don't care if they have a risk of getting deported. They don't care because at least they got away for at least maybe a year. At least maybe a year, right? So it's just like the 5 years is such a better amount of time, and I bet you it'll cut illegal immigrations down at least in half. At least in half, at least. Right? Compared to the 20-year country, which because they're waiting so long, they're immigrating over there no matter what. They cannot wait 20 years. They're not going to survive 20 years. Maybe they said a bad thing to a gang member and they're like, oh my god, I'm dead. I'm 100% dead. The next time they see me, I'm dead. Like, that's just how it works. Imagine you were about to die. You illegally immigrated, right? It's like, I'm so sorry for illegally immigrating, but they would understand. They would understand. Because if they knew I was about to get murdered, or my children were going to get raped, or they knew I was going to be put as a sex prostitute on the streets, I'm saying those as the worst of the worst because it does happen, or getting it shot in front of my kids, right? You have to think, like, oh my god, like, I actually do agree with them, right? Like, I do agree with them. That's terrible what they did to you. That shouldn't have happened. But also, you have to also think about the fact I fact-checked this once, and I think it was American citizens are more likely to commit crimes twice as much compared to illegal citizens, because illegal citizens want to respect the fact that they came in illegally, right? And not commit any harm, because they know what it's like to be in a country that's absolutely terrible. I just wanted to say that because I feel like I never understood why they did that, but it's because people don't understand that this is what's happening to them outside of them. But some people will just say, to everything I just said, they will just say, I don't care. They immigrated illegally, it doesn't matter. That's called not having empathy, and I bet you probably don't have anything to back that up, and the illegal immigrants have a better chance of acting better than you would. So I just find that kind of funny. But I think personally, if you disagree with that, it's okay to disagree with it, but if your opinion is just because I don't care, they came in illegally, I personally don't think you have empathy. As you can tell, I'm kind of just messing around at this point, because I like to talk. But I think that is all of them. I ended up getting through all of them, it seems, which is great, But now it's going to be done. If you ever want to check out any of this stuff, you can. I will probably be making a daily post, probably going through about, if this is like the average post, it will probably take me about maybe a few minutes per video to go through it all. I might have to, talk about my response that's not completely factual at the end of it every single time to get it to like 8 minutes so that I can throw like 50 ads at you guys and you pay me $1 million. Sadly, I have 27 subscribers, so that's not, I'm not going to be getting ads on my videos or monetizing thing anytime soon. That's like a genetic lottery itself. The YouTube lottery itself, getting a bunch of subscribers. I've been doing all this research, and I bet you this will get one singular video, one view, and it'll be for the first 20 seconds of the video, or they'll skip to the end and be like, oh, I wonder what he says at the end. Man, if only. Alright, but that's about it. I will see you guys next time, and remember to stay updated on your facts and be educated. Be educated. I would recommend All Sides as a news source, Politico, and factcheck.org. All those are great places if you want to see where your people rank. Go ahead and search up their name on Politico. I did search up Jim Jordan, actually, the same person I'm looking at here, and he had like nothing on him from like 2023 actually. So I was like, you know what, I'm going to do it myself. But that's about it. I will see you guys next time.